Сейчас, к сожалению, мы видим, что идеология нацизма уже в своем современном обличии, в современном проявлении вновь создает прямые угрозы безопасности нашей страны. Мы вновь и вновь вынуждены давать отпор агрессии коллективного Запада. Невероятно, невероятно, но факт. Нам снова угрожают немецкими танками «Леопард», на борту которых кресты. И вновь собираются воевать с Россией на земле Украины руками последующих Гитлера, руками бандеровцев. Мы знаем, что несмотря на усилия официальные, продажные по своей сути пропаганды недружественных нам западных элит, у нас много друзей, причем во всем мире, в том числе и на американском континенте, в Северной Америке, в Европе. Но те, кто втягивает европейские страны, в том числе и Германию, в новую войну с Россией, и тем более безответственно заявляет об этом как уже о свершившемся факте, те, кто рассчитывает одержать над Россией победу на поле боя, видимо, не понимают, что современная война с Россией будет для них совсем другой. Мы свои танки к их границам не посылаем, но у нас есть чем ответить. И применением бронетехники дело не закончится. Все должны это понимать. Для тех, кто угрожает нам, видимо, для них непонятна простая истина. Весь наш народ, все мы росли и с молоком матери впитали в себя традиции нашего народа. Поколение победителей, преемственность поколений, ценностей, традиций. Все это то, что отличает Россию, делает нас сильными.
So there you go. The West has made Putin a hero to his people. And the whole of Russia is fired up now. All right, thank God for those Leopard tanks that the Germans, that's really not going to do much good, but the symbolism, I told you in previous videos that was going to come back to haunt you. So let's just go around the horn on the daily report, and then I'm going to finish off the video with my own little story, which you might want to pay attention to. So anyway, Trump came out. I swear, I love him or hate him. He says Putin trusts Putin more than he does the U.S. intelligence. That was a hell of a statement. I do too. I swear I wouldn't trust the FBI. If they knock on your door, don't answer a question. Make sure you say, I want my lawyer. That's all I got to say. I wouldn't talk to an FBI agent these days. This was, I think this is the 10th sanction. If you want to say it's on Russia, but I just thought this was insane. So now they're gonna sanction Steven Seagal for his support of Russia during the war. I just thought that was hilarious. I mean, it's not hilarious for Steven Seagal, but I mean, do you think that they've gone a little too far with these idiot sanctions that aren't working right now, and all they've done is piss off the whole world? I don't know. It just seems like they keep doubling down on stupidity, is my opinion. This was hilarious. Oh my God. There was I think it was like 5 Russian military women. I don't know what their occupations were, but they dressed up in these Generation Z costumes with purple, I don't know what you would call it, feathers on their hips, and they had Gen Z shirts on, and they dyed their hair all kinds of different colors, or maybe they were wearing wigs, and they did this crazy dance to make fun of all the women in the United States military. the Generation Z women, I guess. And oh my God, people were laughing. All the Russians were standing around hooting, and they said, if this is what we got to fight in the United States, we got nothing to worry about, you know. But it was funny. I mean, it was funny to watch them, because the way they did the dance, it was actually choreographed quite well. I was just like, that is really bizarre. All right. So anyway, this was interesting. Lord Austin decided he was going to pay the Philippines a visit. And man, I don't know the size of the protests. I could not get that from the video, but just the fact that there were protests. And there was various clips, and a lot of the Filipinos were burning American flags, or there was some flag burning that was going on. Lots of signs, America go home, we want nothing with your endless wars signs, we don't support the United States, and we don't want your military here but to make us a target. You know, there's all kinds of signs just like that. So I found that very interesting because, you know, we've always been somewhat good with the Philippines, but it looks like even they're turning against us now because of these neocon lunatics that we have in charge. The Bakhmut encirclement continues. I think we're all aware of that if you follow the Ukraine war at all. I guess the reporting that I'm given on that is there doesn't seem to be any indication that the Ukrainians have been able to push back. They just keep losing territory. So I don't see, it just seems like the Russians on all fronts are advancing. I don't see anything in the news about Ukraine pushing back. I don't know if you've noticed, there was a lot of left-wing publications, and they're starting to shift the narrative. You remember how it was that Ukraine was winning, Ukraine was going to Kiev, Ukraine was going to overthrow Russia, Putin was on his way out, Putin had cancer, you know, all of those things. Well, the Western narrative is now shifting to say Ukraine may be losing the war. And then there were some reports that they're saying by the end of the summer that they feel like the war will be over and that Ukraine will have lost. So that's how the narrative is shifting. You're going to see that more and more in your mainstream media. This was an interesting one. It was like, it was on the Rubin Report, yeah, and he was showing a clip of Colbert, and he was making a joke about, you know, how, because in May, supposedly the COVID crisis is going to be over, although it's been over for us here in Florida for 2 years now, but I guess the federal government, they're saying that not until May is it over, and then they panned out to show Colbert's audience, and every single person had a mask on. I thought the whole mask wearing thing was over, but hey, if it makes them feel safe, more power to them. I don't want to get in trouble here on YouTube. Oh yeah, this is kind of my, because, you know, I'm watching now, I was watching an interview, by the way, Dan Bongino, you want to check him out on Rumble. He did a huge, long interview today with Dr. Robert Malone. You know, if you're not familiar, Dr. Robert Malone was the developer of the mRNA vaccine, and so I can't give you any details here on YouTube because I get a strike and censored, but it was very interesting. You ought to go check that out. But I know I can say this. After watching that interview and knowing what we know now, if you're following along with what's going on, I think that Fauci, history's going to judge that troll Fauci. And you know, I hate the son of a gun. I've been hating him for years. In fact, he was part of my divorce. My wife thinks Fauci is the greatest person that ever existed, or my ex-wife. That's why she's my ex-wife. But anyway, I think history's going to judge him very, very harshly. And I'm going to say these words. I think that he'll go down in history as worse than Hitler, and as far as historical reference of an evil son of a gun. But that's just my opinion. So but you'd have to watch that interview to understand what I'm talking about. Anyway, I wanted to talk about urban warfare. You know, for a while I was in the light infantry in the Army, and I was thinking about it. I don't know, I was laying in the bed this morning and I was thinking about, man, I'm so glad that I'm not in this war. And I was, you know, because you're kind of detached when you watch some of these videos where they're showing these urban centers where, the half the city's still in possession by Ukraine. They got apartment buildings that they're housed in, and then of course half the city, the Wagner Group has come in, and so they're battling, house to house, street to street. And I got to thinking, because I was being sent to Honduras, and so what they did was, it was my unit, and they flew us into Fort Bragg. And Fort Bragg, I assume it's still there, they have an urban weapons training area. It's kind of like a simulated little mini city. And it's supposed to, you're supposed to get in there and you wear well, back then it was mop gear. I would hope they got more sophisticated stuff, but it's almost like playing paintball. If you've ever played paintball, you'll kind of know what I'm talking about. But so anyway, it was interesting because and I always, my heart rate always got up because I thought, man, this is for real. I'm going to Honduras. I got to take this stuff seriously, And so I always in my mind was playing it as the real thing, even though we're all shooting blanks at each other with the mop gear, and it'll register a hit, and then you're out of the battle. So anyway, I just remembered my experience with the battles that took place was. Okay, so we were all lined up just like you can picture in Ukraine right now. So let's say the Wagner Group. You're outside of the city, but yet you're advancing towards it, and your tanks, your artillery has blown up, because the first building was just completely in this make-believe city was pretty much destroyed. No roof, walls that looked like they'd been, they probably did do some practice on it, So that was what clears the initial progress into an urban area. Because you can't advance, if the enemy's got lined up in buildings, you can't advance on those buildings until you hit them with the big stuff. And that's the thing, you can't hit what's behind them. Right? So the point is to make the enemy retreat to the second set of buildings so that you can get your troops into the first set of buildings. And now it's building to building. You're going to be fighting them from building to building. And then hopefully, what the Wagner Group, what I'm sure they're doing is, your big weapons are going to come up behind you and support you as you advance from street to street, building to building. Once you've got spotters, when they've got spotters, you got to remember that everybody's shooting back and forth at each other. So anyway, so I got to 3 squads, and this is what you would do. You would send in the first squad, and they're going to take the heaviest casualties, because you don't get that first line of defense out of the way with what you're doing. I'm going to tell you that right now. You do the best you can. So I wasn't in the first wave. I call it the first squad. It was really the first wave. It might have been a whole platoon. So they went in first. They did take some casualties. Supposedly, we had make-believe. And I say make-believe, it was an opposing force that was in there shooting at us, and so, we're simulating all of this. And so then, the second wave went in, and they took less casualties. And of course, the first wave now had moved on to the second set of, really the first set of buildings, because the first building was kind of like out from it, and then the second set of buildings was like 5 buildings or so. I don't remember. It was pretty small. It's supposed to be like a small town. Anyway, so then and I was in the third wave, and so I came in with the third wave, and anyway, I was kind of stupid. I mean, everybody at that point felt pretty safe advancing on the next set of buildings because they were getting cleared. Now, once it's a simulated battle, right? Once they're into that building, the people that were shooting at them, they're now shooting at them, The only thing we didn't have was like simulated grenades. I don't know. They probably have something like that now, because that's what you would be doing, is you would be throwing grenades into the rooms. And, you've seen the movies and stuff, and coming in and clearing the rooms, but it's really not like that. It's chaos. It really is chaos. Although I mentioned the Wagner Group, you get more and more skilled at it. I was pretty bad, and I'm going to describe how bad I was, So I thought everybody's going out the front of the building, right? Advancing right into the enemy. If there was any enemies left, they were advancing right into the fire. And I thought, well, you know what? I'll go out the side door, and that way, I broke off from the the platoon. Of course, you know, you're all broke off. I mean, everybody's everywhere in this type of situation. So anyway, so I went out the side door. Well, nobody, I guess, up until that point had gone out the side door, which was the reason that I went out the side door, because I'd be the least likely target. Well, it turned out it was booby-trapped, and boom. So they simulated my legs being blown off, and I was evacuated to the rear where they did triage on me, make-believe triage as a casualty. So that was my first attempt of getting into the battle. So then, of course, they bring you back up. It might have been the next day. I don't remember. So long ago. So the next time I went into the assault, you know, this time I went out the front door and I made it to the second building, and I was like, all right, you know, and once again, I wasn't in the first wave, you know, so I stood a good chance of making it. And I was moving across the building, and I forgot to duck in front of a window. And boom, that's it. It was over. I was declared a casualty, and I was triaged out back for some more make-believe triage with the medical unit. So now, so I made it past the first building, and I got to the second building, you know. Anyway, so I'm just kind of trying to simulate here what urban warfare is like, at least it was for me anyway. So now the next day, I actually made it pretty much to the end of the town, because, you know, with everybody there, we cleared out all of the enemy forces. I mean, each time if the whole town got cleared, I never was a participant in it. So then we got to the end of the town, and of course the town is almost declared officially cleared. And then they hit us with gas, and real gas. It was CS gas. And we didn't have any gas masks, so then we were all declared casualties because we were gassed at the end. But that's because we weren't provided gas masks. And also they wanted that. I mean, it's brutal, man. When you breathe that CS gas, I mean, it just burns your lungs. If you're sweating, which we were that day, this is summertime, I mean, you know, it burns your skin, your nostrils, and then, of course, the mucus just starts coming out everywhere, you know, and, I mean, it's to incapacitate you, right? I mean, you're not going to be able to fight after you've been gassed. I'm sorry. You know, so they did that to us, and so that was it. So that was my experience with urban warfare. Now, short story long, I don't know what happened, because we were fighting the Nicaraguans in Honduras, and for some reason, my light infantry unit, they just turned around and flew us back. I can't name the town. I don't want to, you know, embarrass them, but so we went through all that training for like a month and a half, and then we're never deployed to Honduras, which was just fine with me. I was just shocked when we got flown back to my reserve unit. And that was it. That was my experience with urban warfare. So I just wanted to tell that story. So anyway, the Boo Dog's here. Say hi, Boo. Say hi, Boo. Yeah. All right. If I come up with anything else that I think is important, we started with Putin's speech. I thought it was pretty well done. If you wanted to fire up your populace, kind of like Churchill or even Roosevelt to a certain degree, or Eisenhower, you know, there's always been great orators. Trump being one of them. I hate to say it. He's a great orator. I watch some of his rallies, and I do want to go to one. Someday I just want to go, because it's, from what I understand, it's like a football game. Everybody's out there cooking on their grills and just having a good time. So I'd like to see one. All right, man. Peace out. Stay free. And it's good to live in the free Republican state of Florida under the great leadership of Governor DeSanctimonious.